to today's episode, Bytes of Brilliance, Digital Strategy Insights for Executives shared by executives. In today's episode, we will be talking about transforming the customer experience at Build-A-Bear with Dara Meath, SVP and CTO. All right, great. Welcome to the Bytes of Brilliance, Digital Strategy Insights for Executives shared by executives, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of digital transformation and leadership. Our mission is to bring you valuable insights from top digital executives driving change in their respective industries. I'm your host, Carsten Krause, Chief Digital Officer at the CDO Times. And today we're super excited to have Dara Meath, Senior Vice President and CTO at Build-A-Bear with us to share her experiences and insights in the digital transformation and leadership. We'll also be discussing the lessons she's learned throughout her journey and her advice for other digital executives. Dara, welcome to the podcast. Can you please tell us a bit about how you got started in the digital space and what led you to your current role at Build-A-Bear?
Yeah, thank you first so much for having me. It's such a great time to be on the podcast, so I appreciate it. And it's been, digital has been through the whole lifespan of IT. I think it's just been that hidden word underneath what we've done a lot throughout our journey of IT. And now it's really at the forefront of how companies are thinking about their next stages of looking to touch upon consumers in a different way, whether that's selling, whether that's education, or whether it's just another touch point of driving information. And so it's a great time in the industry. I started off really early on, I think, within the technology space of listening and learning to different ways that we could start communicating with our internal partners and our external partners. And as I mentioned, that was a long time ago, which I think people, again, just started to get on this bandwagon of digital transformations, this new word, but it's actually been around for a really long time. And so as you start to pathway forward, though, you start to find new different tools and techniques. And I think that's what's led into what the transformation is today for so many companies, taking those tools and techniques and really driving the next level of their business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's it's kind of a cycle where things repeat over and over again. It's sometimes a little bit of a deja vu moment for us as digital leaders. So I was curious, how has Build-A-Bear's digital strategy evolved to that point since you joined the organization?
Yeah, no, great question. First, I'll state that I think Build-A-Bear has been on this journey for a long time as well. They really understood their consumers from day one of opening their first store and really understanding how the consumer was shopping with them and how they were communicating with those consumers, how they were doing touch points through their experience models, and then also how they were working within their own company and starting to drive the different ways of partnering with their vendors, with their different business groups, and then with each other. And so they've been on a really great transformation path over the last couple of years, really identifying different areas of growth and opportunity by using these new initiatives. And so exciting for me to step in when I did. The team is tremendous in the way that they think, coming together as a full executive team and really thinking about things together and really wanted to make the next strides forward by using these different opportunities. So when I walked in, it was already starting, right? It's already been there. But what I get a really great chance to do is to keep it moving, right? In a faster pace, in a newer model. So we're bringing in new ideas about the ways that we're using the tools that we have and connecting them by going into things like advanced point of sale systems, having different touch points on the floors with our consumers, allowing us to really drive the way that people are seeing and working with our, great products. And so that's really the opportunity that's ahead. And then there's this whole space around what we're doing today within our digital e-com sites, our apps, which many people don't realize, but we have about 5 or 6 apps in the App Store today. And they're fun tools. They're fun to play with. You probably haven't seen them because they're probably not your age group right now, but we're working on advancing that so that those that are interested in gaming are getting that opportunity to touch it. The company's done a great job of starting off into the NFT spacing, and really looking at how to drive that. And so there's a lot more to come on that. And then, of course, Roblox was a big opening in 2022. And so we're really taking advantage of where we see all the consumers sitting at and how we can touch them in different ways with our product and have them have a new experience. So it's just an evolution that's never going to stop, right? It's really exciting.
No, absolutely. I recently went to NRF, the National Retail Federation's event, and it was interesting to see, even for in-store experiences, how standing servers were integrated, and they kind of tracked how people are walking through the store, trying to streamline things and optimize, the experience and create really immersive experiences. So I was also wondering, I think you kind of alleviated to that already, but how important is the kind of a customer-centric approach on driving digital transformation at Build-A-Bear?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything that we think about, right? Our consumers range from, someone who was just having probably their first birthday to someone who's honestly, well up into the teen areas. And then there's a lot of adults, right? So we go all full scale of like what we think about. And there's different touch points with that, right? There's a way that a child comes in and wants to play with a toy and feel it and hug it in a different way than an adult. But basically they're both in the same realm, right? There's a little bit of love and really a full experience that goes into that. So the way that we think about it is all those different ways that they can understand how much they can get out of the experience of being a part of Build-A-Bear. The story and history about, building the company and working together for that engagement point is so strong and so passionate. And so what we're looking at is making sure that people understand that. And when they're having a bad day, we're the company there for them. When they're doing a celebration, we're the company there for them. And when they're having a great day, we're the company there for them, right? And so it's giving them the best experience they can have. And some of that is just building the bear, right? And having that. Some of it is actually watching a video. Others is, playing a game with us, right? It may be, as you know, we have an entertainment area. It may be watching one of the movies that we've put out, right? So it's a really exciting time to be able to share all of that. And really, the sky's the limit, right? So our endeavors are, if you're someone who likes to game, we're adding more value into that. If you're someone who likes to, touch and feel your products, we're adding more value into that. So it's all about the different ways that we're putting together these different journeys so that people can have the best experience with us.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I recently did journey mappings, for different personas. So as you said, I can imagine there's different personas that you map on, maybe even for the parents too, right? They're probably part of the picture too, and they have some experience with the
absolutely.
Also, that's
I mean, well, no one likes to walk into a store and just stand around, right? I used to say this all the time. I absolutely loved walking into Build-A-Bear, and I still have my old stuff card. So one of the first thing I did is when I walked into the building the first day, I was like, "Here's my old stuff card," and of course, a lot of the younger generations were like, "Oh, wait, what is that?" Right? So that was so long ago. And I remember taking, my kids into the store when they were just, wee tots as well, and sharing in that experience with them. But it's so great to be a part of something and not just be on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Build-A-Bear gives such a unique opportunity too, is that you're not just standing around waiting for your children to shop, you're actually a part of it. And we see such a lift in those that are coming into the store wanting to purchase their own. My last shopping experience had my entire family all wanting to shop, and they didn't think they were going to when they first walked in. And the next thing you know, everybody walked out with a bear and they had the best time. So that's really what it's all about. It's the fun and excitement and the engagement and having a lot of heart and feeling like a kid again.
It's also upselling.
Absolutely. It is, right? There's so many, how can you not walk around and just touch plushies, right? So, it's a whole different experience. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That certainly sounds like a lot of fun. I have to, go to a store with my kids again. They're a little bit older, but I think, they're still like animals. And I think the whole process is really amazing that you guys orchestrate. So
Well, there's a bear for everyone, right? And I think that's the point. If you're going to be relevant in today's industry, whether it's on the product itself or on the experience you're going to do, digital transformation takes into account that, as we're looking at things, we're looking at for all age groups, as I mentioned. So teens are just as engaged today as our young, industry or our children. And so we see a very big uplift in this because I think people really want that happy touch point and they want to feel something that makes them comfortable and gives them a heart, right? So we're really looking at our digital transformation in that way. We're looking at, what are those age groups doing? How are we segmenting them? How are we driving our traffic? And so part of our e-com site is actually one that's driven, a little bit around what's happening today in teens, right? And then we have a part of our website that's really focused on adults. So we call that the Bear Cave. And we've done that so that people can, really understand some bear products. One of the big launches we just did was Ted Lasso, which is probably one of the, most, successful stories because it's a happy show that actually made it, right? And so, generally people love that kind of, oh, like, how do I feel good, right? And so it came at the right time, and we just did a great launch with that. And the bear is absolutely fantastic, and there's all the accessories around it. So we are hearing, we are using our data points, we're understanding, we're using all of our social media connections, and so we are driving all of that day-to-day operations to really keep driving our success for the business.
Yeah, I might have to go to the store and get a Ted Lasso bear. I love that show.
It's fantastic. You just look at it and you're like, it's great. All the different characters and stuff and all the different parts with it. It's fantastic.
Right. So I'm sure when you kind of went through the digital transformation, that it might be not just at Build-A-Bear or previous organizations, right? I think what's really valuable is to also learn from, things you try things out and they don't work, or you hit building blocks and you find creative ways to overcome them. Are there any examples that come in mind that might be interesting for our readers?
Yeah, look, if we don't talk about the good and the bad, we're not being real, right? And so it's important to do that. I think one of the biggest things I always mention is that the education of the associates that are coming along with these new technologies is so important. You walk into a company and you know that you have a really strong technology team because they've been doing a great job all along. But what you also know is that you need to change some of the tool sets that we're using, and you need to start advancing some areas because that's your next part of the journey. And when that happens, the worst thing you could do is not help to perform and educate those that are working underneath those areas. And I think oftentimes, people forget to take in consideration that part of it. They just assume, well, if I'll bring in an outside party or a service, they'll go ahead and help me do the lift and we'll get it done really quickly. And then we'll go ahead and run with it. And what's unfortunate is if you don't actually take into consideration that, what happens is when they walk away, you're left still in the same position that you were before you started. And so you're always relying on third parties to constantly get you through to the next process. And so one of the best things you can do is to ensure that those that are coming on the journey with you are knowledgeable with that, right? Making sure they're a part of the conversation, make sure that they feel confident and comfortable about the technology, and make sure that they, are strong enough in their development and education to be able to support that. And that's simply taking them back through pure one-on-one training with the sources, going out for any certifications and so on. So when you get out into your additional parts of the business and you look at marketing, merchandising, finance, the same type of analogy needs to go out into those departments. You need to ensure that they are able to work with you one-on-one and they have, the viable questions that they want to come back with. So you start up and you put out your next procedure and they need to go through the same training, the same references, the same engagements, and they need to be a part of the conversation from moment one. Because if you don't have them there, chances are they won't buy into it and chances are they won't be a part of it. So, and that's really what it comes down to, right? Technology can be one of the greatest parts about our future, but can also be one of the scariest things that happens because you're now breaking things that were working all along. So why change them, right? It's always that philosophy, right? If it's always worked, why fix it? Why change it? Well, right. You're doing it really for the evolution. And so you need to make sure that people understand that and have clear definition against it.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that was a really good point, that really need to build in a methodology where you're developing a digital DNA within your organization, right? And so it's something that kind of sticks around, and you don't revert back after you're, many times you have consultant companies that come in, drop something in, live, and then they're expensive, so they leave, and then so it's really important. I think that shows your leadership, that you're looking at establishing that and nurturing that evolution that you have to go through with the whole organization. So that's, I think that's
you have to, right? You have to believe in the people that are with you along the journey, but you have to support them. You can't just expect that they're going to know it all, because you don't, right? The reason that you have so many great associates within your departments is because that you lean on them, they lean on you. I learn more each day from those that work for me than I would ever do from, not ever like learning for myself, right? So I love the in-person understanding and engagements. And so you've got to give them that lift up to get there.
Right. No, I think that's great. Yeah, I think so. I think the other thing is that things keep on changing, right? So maybe more shifting topics towards your team. How do you ensure that your team stays agile and adaptable in this ever-changing digital landscape? Because as in many cases, at least for us technologists and technology leaders, you learn something one year and you have to forget what you learned the previous year and have to learn all over something else, like NFTs or whatever, that you just talked about.
No, it's tough, right? Because it does change, and it's great and it's tough, right? So I, like, as you said, right, we like to learn and do something new. What's great about it is I think you do run like an agile house, right? So one of the first things I do is go in and shift the methodology of like how we're operating. Unfortunately, the old waterfall effect, or the way that people were doing businesses, doesn't work well in a digital transformation environment. So one of the first things you do is roadmap that agile project management thought philosophy. And you do it not just in the project sense, but in the overall landscape of the business. So I always run something called T90, which is transformation in 90 days. And it's trying to match our requirements that can hit 90-day cycles. So it might be, I'm moving out of one segment of an EP into another segment of EP. How can we do that in 90 days, right? What can we do to really track that and position it and do it in 90 days? And, I really challenge everyone that works for me. And I'm shocked how many people always still want to hang out with me afterwards, but I challenge, because I say this, if you start that concept and you run it all the way through, believe it or not, most things can be accomplished in that period of time. It's the continued motion of it, right? It's a continuous cycled motion of it that's really important. And I think what happens is when people get really broken into, if you try to do a full lift, so if I were to try to do a full platform lift from one to another, I can tell you that would be not a digital transformation in my sense, because it would take me 2 years to get there, right? It would be too many overheads. I'd probably end up getting there in 2.5 years versus 2, right? Like it's not really evolving the right way. So by being agile, instead of trying to do full lifts, I take segments, right? I'll take a segment of the system, lift it and shift it. Segment of the system, lift it and shift it. By doing that in a logical sense, you continue that motion until in the next, year, you've actually lifted the entire cycle, right? So there's a great way of doing that. And I think people find that it's quicker, it's more effective and efficient. Your connection points may once in a while go into a one-to-one relationship where you have to go back and forth. But at the end of the day, that little bit of work is picked up and gained towards the end, right? So it's thinking differently.
I love that. We'll maybe have to deep dive on that T90 approach a little bit more at some stage later, but that sounds like a very cool concept. So you get, early feedback and you break down all these humongous projects that, that's typically waterfall. You start something, you deliver something, oh, wait a second, that's not what I expected. And then, you spend all this time, right? So I love that approach to break out these bigger projects that way.
It's more successful. And to be honest, it's less discouraging. If you're a team member and you're a developer, let's say, and you've been on this project for 2.5 years, I mean, how engaged still are you, right? At the end, are you really feeling that excitement of, I've just done it, right? No. So you have to challenge yourself to be able to pick up and start to change that thought process. If you can't, unfortunately, you do become very irrelevant after a period of time. And what's challenging about that is that someone does come out with something new. And even if it's a privacy policy or a securities requirement, you're still catching up, right? And so this allows you to, while that whole world is operating around you, it allows you to keep operating, right?
Yeah.
And to really core focus and move.
Yeah, I think that's also in line with, I think Gartner was talking about that recently, and also in the context of microservices architecture, that you're looking more at like composable business capabilities that you can deploy, and especially like if you're doing like an e-commerce rollout to other countries, which I did before, is it's very helpful that you can rearrange for different countries. These things are the same. These things might need to be customized, but you really are so much more nimble and flexible. Or even for situations where you're disrupted by hopefully never again, but something like COVID-19. But yeah, that's super helpful.
And I think that, where you need to establish things like there's repetitive motion, right? So we always talk about, what can we do for those? And obviously it works well when you're trying to do those types of cycles, because what it allows you to do is go, again, core focus on that and lift that. It works really well for things like, BI and AI. And why is because that's a constant, test, repeat. But ultimately, right, you could be running those strings of logic forever if you don't actually take a segment and say, this is where I'm really focused on. Let me take this particular model, particular segment. I can repeat the model if it works, but let me just hone in on that and then test, repeat against that. I can land it, great. Now I can go back into my next segment. And so I think it works well across all avenues, whether it's an application, a part of your digital portfolio, or something that you're doing over on, your business intelligence and AI. So it's an exciting time for companies to think in different transformational ways.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Maybe since you're talking about technologies, our listeners and readers at CEOtimes.com are very interested in emerging technologies. So what emerging technologies or trends do you believe will have a significant impact on digital transformation and customer experience now and in the coming years?
Well, it was funny because I mentioned right before this podcast, we were just chatting about, hey, some of those big decision makers out there that are running these massive companies now want to put a little, let's pause on AI, right? And so it's interesting that they will first think that they have the power to be able to do that, right? Maybe within their own organizations, but, try to do that with, 50,000 startups each year around the space and good luck, right? And I think, there is a lot happening today. Obviously chats are, and the AI segment is probably the biggest thing that's going on right now, right? How do we utilize that functionality in everyday business? And so it's like, when does that fit in? How does it fit in? And how do you get it to start? So when I think about big companies like ourselves, there's a lot we're already doing in the space, right? We started to think in that logic, before I came on board, and now we're starting to accelerate those types of things. And it's really about, having the experience model out to the consumer so that they're self-served. And I think that's a really good space for those that are in the consumer spaces. So whether you're trying to book a flight or trying to do something with your, building a bear, or trying to do something with a hotel or whatever it might be, you want to be able to do it as quick and as efficiently as possible. And the key underliner is you want to do it securely, right? And so everyone thinks about security at every touch point that they do. So, that's one of the highest things that we look at is every quarter we look back and we say, where are we with our securities? What's coming out next? What do we need to do to stay ahead of it? Because that's the highest challenge against advancing yourself in technology is there's a risk, and there's a risk to those that consume our consumers, right, and buying from us. So we look at a lot that's happening out in the security realm of things. And then we look at the ways that consumers are going to want to talk and communicate with us, right? And that comes into the chat abilities and self-service. And so self-service models are a big part of what we look at as well. And then, of course, a lot around the intelligence of reporting. And so how can we use what we are underlining as BI intelligence today and then start to string up the AI effects? But do we use, AI open source? Do we use something that, we're recreating and things like that? So there's not a lot of companies out today that are doing a lot within that space yet. But I think that's an emerging trend. The challenge is obviously getting funding and then, of course, regulatory around it. And I know that there's a lot of great businesses that are out there thinking about responsibility, like the AI responsibility, environments. And that's the important part of it, because as we do start to look at those things that are coming next, which our consumers are looking for, those are the things we start to think about. And then just expanding models like, how can we ship same day? How can we ship overnight, right? People don't realize how much technology goes into that. It's all geographical. It's all about partnerships. It's all about the fast advancements. And then we have to rely on partners to be just as quick and as fast advanced as we do. So there's a lot about that relationship and driving that relationship to make sure that our consumers always have the best experience.
Yeah, I know that makes sense. Now, I worked with consumer product and retail when I was CIO and CISO for third-party logistics providers. So can definitely appreciate that. When we're talking, so is there related to ChatGPT and computer vision and some things that you see out there, even like at South by Southwest, the conference? I have to think which company it was. I'm not sure if it was Microsoft, but they showed basically a robot toy that was really cute and was able to skate around in front of the audience. I don't know if you saw it. I can send it to you, but
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic.
Something like that happening in the future for Build-A-Bear.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt, right? So, I mean, if we could think about it, we're going to do it, right? So, yeah, I mean, the sky's going to be ultimately the limit for that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that in the future, those are the types of technology we're going to get to, right? Maybe, your fun Al here, who, oops, sorry, just fell over. Maybe he does some kind of interaction with you. Maybe he does, maybe he just, has more voice commands and things like that. We have a lot of interesting things in today with our actual connection with the bears. There's a lot of unlocking with our tools for games. There's a lot of ways that you can interact with our consumer service that way, as well as we have a lot of sounds in our bears. So that's, although a little old traditional, but those sounds make up a lot of pieces and components that give you 8 different languages or whatever it might be that's required, right? So there's a lot more that's going to be coming down. Absolutely. I mean, how do you continue to keep growing and keep being essential? At the same time, we are a children's brand, though, so we're very sensitive to that. And so we take things like privacy, we take things like our children's, requirements very seriously. And so everything that we do, we adapt to, whether you're, again, 1-year-old celebrating your birthday with us, or, you're 85 celebrating your birthday. We want to make sure that the consumers that are shopping with us, they understand what our privacy and data rules are, so that if we do go into these advanced technologies, which are our future, that we stay very protected for them. That's a big part of it, right? And that's what's happening right now with the chat, right? People are like, oh my gosh, is it too advanced? Is it too much? I have no doubt that, with ADA compliancy and other things that are out there, those things are actually going to be such an advantage for those that, need extra support to allow you to interact with sites and apps, right? So we're going to be working, we have a 3D environment on our website today that we're continuing to advance. And those types of things are really great, but there are limitations to those that can work with it. And so there's no doubt that the AI building behind that will give us the opportunity to continue to extend that for everyone that might want to, be a part of the community.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think there's lots of opportunity, a lot of changes happening, and a lot of things to be figured out. But it's also good to see early, things that we need to control, right? And that we maybe need to have a policy for, work with politicians, and having a framework of, what's right, where are the limits, where can we create great experiences, like, for Build-A-Bear or other products, and making sure that they're safe and that the data is safe, right? So definitely appreciate, what you said. So
yeah. Well, if you think about it, right, when RFID first came out, it was a big, oh my gosh, right? Now we're this data is being collected in a whole different way, right? And then we started things like beacons and all, right? And that was a very big piece of that. And right now, if you think about them, they're on a small scale compared to what this lift is, right? With the open AI, right? So it's like, okay, now how do we use that responsibly, right? And every segment that you do, again, you don't stop it, the progress. You just sure that you're all using it in the right way. And for your consumers, you're using it in the right way. So I still believe, some of my love pieces of things are when you walk into a store, I don't necessarily have to know who you are, but I want to be able to engage with you. So I love when, and I've done this in other companies, you've walked into a store, when you come up to a screen and it starts to recognize who you are and understand your shopping, and then starts to, help you pick, right, things that are in the store. So there's touch points throughout stores, and that's an exciting part because people feel personalized without having to have a salesperson, right? Interactive displays do a lot of that stuff. So it's an exciting time to watch that become more advanced. But as I said, I think people have to be very cautionary. The best developers in the world can do really great things for this area if they all do it the right way.
Yeah. Again, when it was an NRF, I remember seeing, augmented reality displays being projected, and you could see it and see demonstrations of products. It's just a cool new way to showcase your products and just the experience that customers have with your brand. So that's really, really cool to hear, what you guys are doing with that.
So much to come, just watch the journey. That's the exciting part, right? It's I can't share everything, right? So unfortunately, right. But there is a lot to come. And I think that's how we're just one of many companies thinking that way. But I like to believe that we're one of the first ones thinking in certain terms that we're going to be doing in the future. And that's what the exciting part is. If you have a strong team that can all see the vision, it's unbelievable what you can do together.
Wow. No, that's a great sentence. So I think that probably I think we've covered most of the questions. So thank you so much for joining today, Dara. We really appreciate your valuable insights into digital transformation and leadership at Build-A-Bear. Before we close, do you have any final thoughts or advice for listeners?
I would just say, keep following your passion and your dreams. Continue to keep, putting technology at your forefront, because it's probably one of the most amazing things. I talk tech more than I talk anything else, which may or may not drive people crazy. But it is a part of the strong conversation for every business today. So, if you have great ideas, make sure you keep putting them in front of the person that you're working with, because that's where the great ideas come from those that, it's one idea that creates a second idea that keeps going. So, continue to follow that, continue to keep using the technology in the right way, because if you keep doing it, then I know the world will keep creating great things. And, I want to thank everybody so much for your time today. This was fantastic.
Great. Thank you so much. Where can our listeners connect with you or follow your work?
Sure. Right. I have a LinkedIn. So you can follow me at Dara Meath on LinkedIn. That's probably one of the best things right now. We're building out a few more things as we grow this part of the business. You'll see some more personal stuff coming out of myself. I'm actually working with a lot of boards, and I'm in the middle of writing a book right now. So it'll be exciting once that's launched. So I'll share all of that. So yeah. So make sure you follow me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to connect and chat with anyone who has any questions.
Great. Awesome. All right. Thank you for tuning into this episode, Bytes of Brilliance, Digital Strategy Insights for Executives, shared by executives. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dara Meath and that you found her experiences and advice helpful. I certainly thought it was great. Don't forget to visit ctotimes.com for more insights and resources from digital executives like Dara. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast, and subscribe on ctotimes.com. Once again, I'm your host, Carsten Krause, Chief Digital Officer at the CTO Times, and we look forward to having you join us next time for another insightful conversation on digital strategy and transformation. Until then, take care and keep innovating.